One of the biggest pieces of misinformation that US House Republicans are putting out about the tax and budget bill they passed recently is that it doesn't cut Medicaid. Don't believe them. Just before the Memorial Day holiday, the US House passed by the narrowest margin a massive tax and budget package. Only Republicans voted for the bill. This bill calls for $3.8 trillion in tax cuts, and the bulk of that money would go to the rich. As we can see in this chart, the richest 20%, and that's the column on the right-hand side, get about two-thirds of all the money. And to offset some of its cost, the bill also slashes safety net programs, including Medicaid, better known here in Oregon as the Oregon Health Plan. An analysis produced by the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, so in other words, the analyst for Congress itself, said that one of the effects of the legislation is $698 billion less in federal subsidies from changes to the Medicaid program over the years 2026 to 2034. $698 billion less is just another way of saying $698 billion in cuts to Medicaid. But House Republicans insist otherwise. Take Representative Cliff Bentz, who represents Oregon's 2nd Congressional District. He was the only member of Oregon's congressional delegation to vote in favor of the tax and budget bill. This is what he said the day after the vote in a telephone town hall.
We've got an online question that was submitted by Rebecca, who's got Medicaid on her mind, and she's asking, why are you cutting Medicaid when you promised you would not?
Well, I'm keeping my promise. We are not cutting Medicaid. Medicaid is an indispensable lifeline for our country and for our country's most vulnerable.
Representative Bentz argues that the bill doesn't cut Medicaid, but instead puts in place work requirements to receive Medicaid. So what are these work requirements? Basically, the bill denies Medicaid to any adult who cannot show that they work for at least 80 hours per month. The bill does create exceptions, such as for people with disabilities, parents staying home to take care of the kids, and people who are pregnant. But here's the thing. More than 90% of people on Medicaid are already working, or they meet one of the exceptions, such as having a disability or having caretaking responsibilities. So if nearly everyone already on the program remains eligible, how does the House bill achieve hundreds of billions of dollars in savings from Medicaid? It does so by setting up red tape, by requiring people to fill out a bunch of paperwork and to do it regularly. It sets up bureaucratic obstacles for staying covered by Medicaid, which will cause a bunch of people eligible for the program to drop off. It cuts off Medicaid by shedding off people. This is not some hypothetical scenario. Putting work requirements on Medicaid has been tried before. In 2018, the state of Arkansas put in place work requirements. So what happened there? A bunch of people dropped out. About two-thirds of the folks who dropped out met the work requirements or met one of the exceptions. In other words, the vast majority of people who fell off the Medicaid program in Arkansas were eligible, but they just couldn't deal with all the paperwork. Eligible people dropping out of Medicaid is not a bug of the bill, it's a feature. Getting people to drop out is a big part of how the House Republican bill shrinks the cost of Medicaid by $698 billion. But that's not all. Another way the bill cuts Medicaid is by shifting some of the costs to families in a way that deters people from getting the healthcare that they need. The bill requires states to start charging people $35 to go see the doctor. Keep in mind that there are huge numbers of families already struggling to make ends meet. One recent analysis showed that 4 out of 10 Oregonians, 4 out of 10, don't make enough money to reasonably afford food, rent, and all the other essentials. So while the House Republican bill doesn't ask families in poverty to pay, there will be many other families already stretched to the breaking point who will now have to pay $35 for every doctor visit. For some, this will deter them from going to see the doctor altogether, putting their health and even life on the line. For the rest, it means having to deal with another bill that they can't really afford. So the bottom line is that the House Republican tax and budget bill cuts Medicaid. It does so by making it really hard for people to stay on Medicaid, even if they are eligible, or by shifting the cost of Medicaid to families working hard to stay afloat, but really struggling financially. All of this should be especially alarming to the people of Oregon's 2nd Congressional District, the people Cliff Bentz represents. His district has the highest share of people who get their health care from Medicaid out of all congressional districts here in Oregon. 4 out of 10 people in Bentz's district rely on Medicaid. The very least he could do is to level with the people of his district and acknowledge that, of course, he and everyone who voted for the bill voted to cut Medicaid. And they did so to pay for tax cuts that mainly benefit the rich.